He had survived men who lied to his face, partners who smiled while planning his downfall, and enemies who waited years for one mistake. But Adrian Moretti never imagined the thing weakening him might already be sitting beside his breakfast. The amber liquid caught the pale morning light as he raised the glass toward his mouth. Across the marble breakfast room, Maya Brooks stopped pushing her cleaning cart. Her fingers tightened around a folded white cloth. For 3 seconds, she said nothing. 3 seconds was enough for fear to tell her who she was. A cleaning lady, 31 years old, black, quiet, easily replaced, and standing 20 feet from a white man whose name could silence an entire room. Adrian lifted the glass higher. Maya heard her own voice before courage had time to leave her. "Sir, do not drink that." The room went still. Adrian's glass stopped less than an inch from his lips. 2 men near the doorway turned toward Maya. Evelyn Shaw, the house manager, froze beside the silver coffee service. Even the soft ticking of the antique clock suddenly seemed too loud. Adrian slowly lowered his eyes from the glass to Maya. He did not look angry. Somehow that was worse. "Excuse me." His voice was calm, polished, almost gentle. Maya swallowed. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat. "Please, sir, do not drink it." Evelyn stepped forward. "Maya, leave the room." Maya should have obeyed. She had obeyed every instruction since arriving at the Moretti estate 6 months earlier. She cleaned rooms without opening drawers. She polished desks without reading papers. She learned which hallways became quiet when private meetings began. In a house built on secrets, invisibility was the safest uniform she owned. But Adrian still held the amber glass. "Every time you drink it," Maya said, forcing the words through a dry mouth, "you get sick." Nobody moved. Adrian looked at the liquid, then at her. "You have been watching me?" Maya shook her head quickly. "No, sir." That sounded exactly like watching. "I notice routines." A faint line appeared between his eyebrows. Maya wished she could take the sentence back, but the truth had already entered the room. Adrian Moretti had been mysteriously ill for months. Everyone knew it without admitting they knew. Meetings ended early. Breakfast trays returned untouched. Some mornings, he walked through the estate with the cold certainty of a man who controlled everything around him. Other mornings, his face turned pale before 10 o'clock, his concentration slipped, and he disappeared upstairs while Dr. Leonard Hayes explained it away with the same 2 words: stress and exhaustion. Maya had believed that explanation too. At first, Adrian placed the glass on the table with a soft click. "Come closer." Maya did not move. "Miss Brooks," he said, using her name for the first time since she had been hired. "Come closer." She left the cart beside the wall and crossed the polished floor. Each step felt louder than the last. When she reached the table, Adrian turned the glass slightly between his fingers. "What makes you think this is connected to my health?" Maya looked at Evelyn, then at the men by the door, then back at Adrian. "Because on the mornings you do not drink it, you finish your coffee." Adrian's expression changed by almost nothing. Maya continued, "You read the newspaper. You take calls before 9. Sometimes you ask for more toast." Evelyn stared at her. Maya's voice grew quieter. "But when that bottle is here, you stop eating within an hour. You rub your left temple. You ask people to repeat themselves. Then Dr. Hayes comes." The silence that followed was different now. Not disbelief. Calculation. Adrian looked down at the amber liquid. For the first time, Maya saw uncertainty cross the face of a man famous for never showing it. "How many times?" he asked. Maya hesitated. "For that I remember clearly." His eyes returned to hers. "Clearly." Maya nodded. "I wrote down the dates." One of the men near the door shifted his weight. Evelyn's face lost color. Adrian leaned back slowly, leaving the glass untouched between them. "Why would a cleaning lady write down the dates I became sick?" Maya met his stare, frightened but steady. "Because after the 3rd time, sir, I stopped believing it was random." Adrian said nothing. The amber glass remained on the table, glowing warmly in the morning sun, beautiful and ordinary. Then Adrian pushed it away from himself. "Show me." 3 months earlier, Adrian Moretti had still believed his body was the one thing no rival could negotiate with. At 43, he woke before sunrise, drank black coffee without sugar, walked 2 miles on the private road behind his estate, and reached his office before most of New York had finished breakfast. His schedule was exact because exact things could be controlled. Then one Tuesday morning, control began slipping through his fingers. Adrian had been reviewing financial reports when the numbers on the page seemed to drift apart. He blinked and read the same sentence twice. A dull pressure settled behind his left temple. By 10 o'clock, his appetite was gone. Dr. Leonard Hayes arrived before noon and found Adrian sitting behind his desk with the curtains partly closed. "Stress," Hayes said after examining him. "You are sleeping 4 hours a night and treating coffee like water." Adrian disliked the answer because it sounded reasonable. Hayes had served as his private physician for nearly 8 years. He knew Adrian's medical history, his habits, and every old injury Adrian preferred not to discuss. When Hayes recommended rest and a daily nutritional tonic, Adrian accepted both with visible impatience. The first episode passed. 2 weeks later, it happened again. Then again. Fatigue settled into his mornings without warning. Some days, Adrian struggled to follow conversations that should have been effortless. During one meeting, a business associate repeated a question 3 times before Adrian realized everyone was waiting for him to answer. Nobody laughed. Nobody needed to. In Adrian's world, weakness traveled faster than truth. By the end of the month, people had begun studying him. Partners watched how quickly he stood from a chair. Visitors noticed when he canceled dinners. His cousin, Richard Moretti, started offering to handle meetings Adrian had managed alone for years. "You should slow down," Richard told him one evening. Adrian had looked across the table and heard concern in the words, but something about the attention irritated him. "When I need you to manage my calendar, I will ask." Richard smiled and changed the subject. Adrian told himself the illness was temporary. Hayes agreed. "Exhaustion," the doctor repeated. "Stress. Perhaps age catching up with a man who had spent too many years refusing ordinary limits." Adrian almost believed him. Maya Brooks noticed something different. She had joined the estate cleaning staff 6 months earlier, and for the first 3 months, Adrian had been little more than a distant figure moving between closed doors. Maya knew his routines because cleaning a house this large required knowing when rooms were empty. Adrian entered the breakfast room at 7:15. He drank coffee first. He read printed reports while eating eggs and toast. At 8, he moved to the study. Maya cleaned the breakfast room at 8:10. Routine made her efficient. Routine also made changes impossible to miss. The first time Adrian became ill, Maya found half his breakfast untouched. The second time, the same thing happened. On another morning, she entered the hallway as Adrian paused near the staircase and pressed 2 fingers against his left temple. Hayes arrived 30 minutes later. Maya remembered that gesture. Years before, she had worked nights as a custodian at an assisted living facility in Queens. She had never been a nurse. She had never given medication or offered medical advice. Her job had been floors, bathrooms, trash, and quiet hallways after midnight. But the residents taught her something without knowing it. Mrs. Callahan always drank tea before she could sleep. Mr. Reed became confused when his routine changed. A medication cart arriving late could alter the mood of an entire hallway. Maya learned that people revealed patterns long before they explained problems. At the Moretti estate, she began noticing Adrian's pattern. He was not sick every morning. He was not even sick after every difficult meeting. Some of his busiest days ended with him working past midnight without complaint. Yet certain breakfasts seemed to lead to the same sequence. Lost appetite. Temple rubbed. Questions repeated. Dr. Hayes arriving. Maya did not tell anyone. She began writing dates in a small notebook she kept inside her cleaning locker. Not diagnoses. Not accusations. Just dates and details. March 4th, breakfast unfinished. March 17th, dizzy near study. April 2nd, meeting canceled before 10. April 18th, Hayes arrived at 9:40. For incidents. For mornings that felt strangely similar. Maya still did not know what connected them. She only knew Adrian Moretti was not mysteriously sick every day. Something in his routine changed before each episode. And while everyone else watched the powerful man becoming weaker, the cleaning lady began watching what happened just before he did. Maya's first mistake was assuming the answer had to be on Adrian's plate. For 9 mornings, she watched breakfast without appearing to watch anything at all. Eggs on Monday. Oatmeal on Tuesday. Toast with blackberry preserves on Wednesday. The kitchen staff changed fruit according to delivery schedules, but Adrian's black coffee came from the same silver pot every day. Maya wrote everything in her small notebook after her shift. She compared menus with the dates of his episodes. Nothing matched. On April 22nd, Adrian ate eggs, toast, and grapefruit and worked until evening without difficulty. 3 days later, he ate almost the same breakfast and canceled 2 meetings before noon. Maya stared at her notes that night in her Queens apartment until the numbers blurred. Maybe she was imagining a pattern because she wanted one to exist. She was a cleaning lady, not an investigator. More importantly, she was not a doctor. The thought embarrassed her. The next morning, she almost threw the notebook away. Then she remembered Adrian standing near the staircase with 2 fingers pressed against his temple. Maya kept it. She began with the coffee. For 4 days, she noticed which pot entered the breakfast room. Same beans. Same kitchen. Same silver service. Adrian drank 2 cups on a healthy morning and only 1 on the morning his concentration faded. Coffee was not the connection. Maya moved to the food. She asked the kitchen assistant casual questions while wiping counters. Had the eggs changed suppliers? Was the juice freshly squeezed? Did Adrian have allergies? The assistant laughed. Mr. Moretti has eaten the same boring breakfast since before I worked here. Maya smiled and returned to her cart. Another theory disappeared. The answer came on a Thursday morning so quietly that Maya nearly missed it. The breakfast tray had already left the kitchen when Evelyn Shaw entered the service hallway carrying a small amber bottle. Maya was polishing a mirror near the staircase. Evelyn did not notice her watching. She walked into the breakfast room and emerged less than a minute later without the bottle. Doctor's orders. Evelyn told a server who asked whether Adrian needed anything else. Maya's cloth stopped against the glass. Doctor's orders. At 8:10, Maya entered the breakfast room. Adrian was gone. His coffee cup was half full. The eggs were untouched. Beside the water glass sat a faint amber ring no wider than a quarter. Maya looked at it for 3 seconds before wiping the table clean. At 9:15, she passed the study. Adrian's door was open. He sat behind his desk rubbing his left temple. At 9:40, Dr. Hayes arrived. Maya went to her locker during lunch and opened the notebook. She drew a line beneath 4 dates. Then she added a 5th. April 27th. Amber bottle at breakfast. Episode before 9. Hayes arrived 9:40. Her pulse quickened, but Maya forced herself to slow down. 1 bottle proved nothing. Maybe the tonic was given because Adrian already felt sick. Maybe Evelyn noticed symptoms before Maya did. Maybe Hayes was treating a condition nobody on the cleaning staff needed to understand. Maya closed the notebook. She needed another morning. It came 6 days later. Adrian entered the breakfast room looking alert. Maya saw him answer a phone call while walking, his voice clear and impatient. Evelyn arrived 7 minutes later with the amber bottle. By 8:30, Adrian had stopped eating. Before 10, a meeting was postponed. Maya wrote down the time. That evening, she stood alone in the supply room and read every page of her notebook from the beginning. The food changed. The workload changed. The weather changed. One thing appeared again and again. The amber bottle. Maya finally understood why her first theory had failed. She had been watching what the kitchen prepared. She should have been watching what entered the room after the tray left the kitchen. 2 nights later, while emptying the wastebasket in Adrian's private study, Maya saw amber glass beneath several sheets of crumpled paper. She froze. The bottle was empty. Its label had been peeled away so completely that only a narrow strip of white adhesive remained. Maya did not pick it up. She removed her phone and took 1 photograph. Then another from farther back, showing the bottle inside the wastebasket exactly where she had found it. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Maya slipped the phone into her pocket and reached for the trash liner. Dr. Leonard Hayes appeared in the doorway. He should have been gone. Maya had watched his car leave the estate 10 minutes earlier. Hayes smiled. Working late, Miss Brooks? Maya nodded. Just finishing the study. His eyes moved toward the wastebasket, then back to her face. Did Mr. Moretti throw anything unusual away tonight? Maya felt every instinct inside her become quiet. I do not remember, she said. Hayes continued smiling. But for the first time, Maya noticed his smile never reached his eyes. For the rest of that night, Maya could not decide which frightened her more, the empty bottle or the fact that Dr. Hayes had returned to ask about it. She finished replacing the trash liner with careful hands and kept her expression neutral until his footsteps disappeared down the hallway. Only then did she breathe normally again. The photograph remained on her phone. Maya looked at it once in the employee locker room, then locked the screen and slipped the device into her canvas bag. She told herself there could still be an innocent explanation. Hayes might have forgotten something in the study. He might have known Adrian discarded the tonic bottle because he had prescribed it. His question might have been ordinary. But ordinary questions did not usually make Maya feel as if the person asking already knew the answer. The next morning, she arrived at the estate 20 minutes early. She did not go near Adrian's study. She did not ask Evelyn about the amber bottle. Instead, Maya followed her routine exactly. She cleaned the east hallway, dusted the library shelves, and polished the brass fixtures outside the breakfast room. At 7:15, Adrian entered. He wore a charcoal suit and carried a thin folder beneath one arm. His stride was steady. His voice was sharp as he answered a call. Maya kept her eyes on the brass handle beneath her cloth. At 7:28, breakfast arrived. At 7:34, Evelyn entered the room, carrying nothing. Maya waited. 7:40. 7:45. Adrian continued speaking on the phone. At 8:10, he left the breakfast room after finishing nearly everything on his plate. Maya entered to clean. 2 empty coffee cups. 1 crust of toast. No amber ring beside the water glass. Adrian worked through the morning without canceling a meeting. Maya wrote the date in her notebook. The following day was different. At 7:37, Dr. Hayes arrived unexpectedly. Maya saw him cross the main hall while she arranged fresh towels in the guest powder room. He carried a black leather medical case and greeted Evelyn with the familiarity of someone who never needed permission to enter. 10 minutes later, Maya passed the breakfast room. The amber bottle stood beside Adrian's water. Her stomach tightened. She wanted to speak. Instead, she kept walking. Doubt held her silent. If she accused a respected physician and was wrong, she would lose more than a job. She would become the woman who confused observation with expertise. By 9 o'clock, Adrian had left half his coffee untouched. At 9:20, a staff member carried a tray from his study containing a full glass of water and an untouched sandwich. At 10:15, Evelyn quietly informed the kitchen that Mr. Moretti would not attend lunch. Maya stood in the service hallway with her notebook hidden in her apron pocket. 5 episodes had become 6. That afternoon, she opened the photograph of the label-free bottle and enlarged it. Near the bottom of the glass was a tiny printed manufacturing code. Maya could barely read it. She copied the letters and numbers onto paper. Then she stopped, searching the code. Online would not tell her what had been inside a bottle with no label. She was reaching the edge of what observation could prove. Maya closed the browser on her phone without typing anything. She would not invent evidence simply because she was afraid. That evening, Adrian passed her in the library corridor. He moved more slowly than usual. His face looked tired, and when Evelyn asked whether he wanted Dr. Hayes called again, Adrian answered with visible irritation. He was already here. Maya looked down at her cart. Adrian took 3 more steps, then stopped. Miss Brooks. Maya raised her head. He studied her for a moment. You look like you want to say something. Her throat tightened. Behind him, Evelyn waited. Maya thought about the bottle, the photograph, the 6 dates, Hayes returning after his car had left. She also thought about rent, groceries, and how quickly a quiet woman could be labeled difficult. No, sir, Maya said. Adrian held her gaze 1 second longer. All right. He continued down the corridor. Maya watched him disappear into the study. Shame settled heavily in her chest. She had spent weeks counting patterns because nobody else seemed to notice them. Now the man at the center of those patterns had stood directly in front of her, and she had chosen silence. The next morning, Maya entered the breakfast room with her cleaning cart, just as Adrian lifted a glass of amber tonic toward his mouth. She saw the bottle beside his plate. She saw Dr. Hayes's black medical case near the wall. She saw Adrian's fingers close around the glass. Fear gave her every reason to keep walking. Maya stopped anyway. Sir, do not drink that. The second time Maya said the words, Adrian did not ask her to repeat them. He lowered the glass and placed it on the table, his eyes fixed on her with a cold concentration that made everyone else in the breakfast room disappear. Dr. Hayes stood near the window, one hand resting on his black medical case. Evelyn remained beside the coffee service. The 2 security men at the doorway watched Maya, as if waiting for Adrian to decide whether she belonged in the room. Every time I drink it, Adrian said slowly. That is what you told me. Maya nodded. Her mouth felt dry. Yes, sir. Hayes gave a quiet laugh. Adrian, this is absurd. She cleans the house. She has no understanding of your medical treatment. Maya looked at the doctor. I never said I did. Hayes's smile tightened. Adrian noticed. Then explain what you do understand, Miss Brooks. Maya reached into her apron pocket and removed the small notebook. Her fingers trembled, but she placed it on the table. Dates, she said. Adrian opened it. March 4th, March 17th, April 2nd, April 18th, April 27th, May 3rd. He looked up. What are these? The mornings you became sick. Hayes stepped forward. This is completely inappropriate. Adrian raised one hand without looking at him. Hayes stopped speaking. Maya continued. The food was different. I checked the breakfast menus. The coffee was the same on days you felt well. Some days you had difficult meetings and worked until midnight without getting sick. She pointed toward the amber glass. But when that bottle appears at breakfast, the same things happen. Adrian's eyes returned to the notebook. What things? You stop eating. You rub your left temple. You ask people to repeat questions. Then your schedule changes before lunch. Evelyn stared at Maya. How could you know his schedule? Because canceled rooms get cleaned at different times, Maya answered. The room became silent. Adrian looked at her for several seconds. Maya could not tell whether she had impressed him or offended him. Hayes finally spoke. You are describing symptoms she already knew about and attaching them to a harmless nutritional supplement. Maybe, Maya said. Hayes turned toward her. There is no maybe. I prescribed it. Maya felt fear rise again, but she remembered the wastebasket. Then why was the label removed from the bottle in Mr. Moretti's study? Hayes froze. Only for a second. Adrian saw it. What bottle? Maya took out her phone. She opened the photograph and placed the device beside Adrian's notebook. He studied the image. The amber bottle rested inside the wastebasket beneath crumpled papers, exactly where Maya had found it. Adrian enlarged the photograph with 2 fingers. When was this taken? 2 nights ago. Hayes shook his head. An empty bottle in a trash can prove nothing. Maya looked directly at Adrian. Dr. Hayes came back after his car left the estate. Evelyn's expression changed. Adrian's voice became quieter. Came back for what? I do not know. He stood in the study doorway and asked whether you had thrown anything unusual away. Adrian turned toward Hayes. The doctor sighed. I returned because I forgot a patient file. I asked about the trash because Adrian has a habit of discarding medication when he becomes frustrated with treatment. You never told me that, Adrian said. Hayes blinked. Told you what? That you were checking my trash. The clock ticked once. Twice. Hayes adjusted his jacket. Adrian, you are allowing a member of the cleaning staff to turn routine medical care into suspicion. Adrian looked at the amber glass. Then at Maya. Can you prove the tonic is making me sick? Maya did not answer immediately. This was the edge she had been afraid to reach. She could have lied. She could have said yes and hoped the pattern carried her the rest of the way. Instead, she shook her head. No, sir. Hayes smiled. Adrian's expression remained unreadable. Maya continued. I can prove the bottle was present before 6 episodes. I can prove it was absent on mornings when the same breakfast did not make you sick. I can show you the photograph. But I cannot tell you what is inside that glass. Adrian leaned back. Then why stop me from drinking it? Maya looked at him steadily. Because I would rather be wrong while it is still on the table. Nobody spoke. Adrian turned to one of the security men. Bring me a clean evidence container. Call an independent laboratory. Not one connected to this house, my businesses, or Dr. Hayes. Hayes stepped forward. Adrian, you said it was harmless. Adrian's eyes settled on him. Then the test will be boring. Hayes opened his mouth, but said nothing. Adrian pushed the amber glass farther away. Then he looked at Maya. You are not to discuss this with anyone. Maya nodded. Yes, sir. And Miss Brooks. She stopped. Keep the notebook. Adrian glanced once more. At the dates written in her careful handwriting. I have a feeling we are not finished counting. For the next 48 hours, Adrian Moretti changed nothing except one small part of his morning. He still entered the breakfast room at 7:15. He still drank black coffee, read printed reports, and answered calls before 8. The eggs remained the same. The toast came from the same kitchen. Evelyn supervised the same staff. But the amber tonic never touched his lips. On the first morning, Adrian waited for the familiar pressure behind his left temple. It never came. At 9, he attended a meeting in his study and followed every number without asking anyone to repeat themselves. At noon, he finished lunch. By 6 that evening, he was irritated by how normal he felt. Normality should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like evidence. The second morning passed the same way. Maya cleaned the breakfast room at 8:10 and found 2 empty coffee cups, a clean plate, and no amber ring beside the water glass. She wrote the date in her notebook. Across the estate, Adrian noticed something else. Dr. Hayes called 3 times before lunch. The first call went to Adrian directly. "How are you feeling?" Hayes asked. "Fine." A pause followed. "Any dizziness?" "No." "Fatigue?" "No." Hayes cleared his throat. "Did you take the tonic?" Adrian looked through the study window toward the winter garden. "I forgot." Another pause. Smaller this time, but Adrian heard it. "You should not interrupt treatment without consulting me. Then remind me tomorrow." Adrian ended the call. The second call went to Evelyn. The third went to Adrian's assistant. Each time, Hayes asked whether Adrian had experienced another episode. By late afternoon, Adrian was no longer waiting for a laboratory result to become suspicious. He was waiting to learn how much suspicion the evidence deserved. Maya, meanwhile, tried to disappear back into her work. She polished furniture, changed linens, and emptied wastebaskets without taking another photograph. She had already crossed a line that frightened her. Now powerful men were making calls behind closed doors because of 6 dates in her notebook. At 4:30, Adrian found her in the library cleaning the lower shelves. "Miss Brooks." Maya stood quickly. "Yes, sir." "You were right about 2 days." She looked at him. "That does not prove the bottle caused anything." Adrian's eyebrows lifted slightly. "You sound disappointed." "I sound careful." For the first time, something close to approval moved across his face. "Good." He placed his hands in his trouser pockets. "Hayes called 3 times today." Maya stopped breathing for a moment. "Did you tell him about the laboratory?" "No." "Did anyone?" "Not unless someone in this house ignored a direct instruction." Maya looked toward the library door. Adrian noticed. "You think someone did?" "I do not know." He studied her. "You say that often." Maya lowered her cloth. "Because knowing and guessing are different things." The words remained between them. Adrian had spent years surrounded by people who turned guesses into certainty whenever they thought certainty would please him. Maya Brooks seemed almost stubbornly unwilling to claim more than she could prove. "The laboratory will call tomorrow," he said. Maya nodded. "Then tomorrow we know more." Adrian turned to leave, then paused. "You are not curious?" "I am terrified." He looked back. Maya gave a small, nervous smile. "Curiosity is just easier to admit." The laboratory called at 10:17 the next morning. Adrian took the call alone in his study. The specialist spoke for nearly 12 minutes. Adrian asked 3 questions, then 2 more. When the call ended, he remained seated behind his desk with one hand resting beside the telephone. At 10:40, he asked Evelyn to bring Maya to the study. Maya entered still wearing cleaning gloves. She removed them quickly and folded her hands. Adrian did not offer her a chair. He seemed to have forgotten chairs existed. "The laboratory found no conventional poison," he said. Maya's shoulders lowered slightly. "Then I was wrong." "No." Adrian's voice stopped her. He opened a printed report. "They found a prescription sedating compound that is not listed anywhere in my treatment plan." Maya stared at him. Adrian continued. "In small amounts, it can cause fatigue, dizziness, reduced concentration, and confusion." The room became silent. Maya looked toward the report. Could it happen by accident? Adrian's jaw tightened. "The laboratory says the concentration was consistent throughout the sample." Maya understood the answer without needing him to explain it. Adrian leaned back slowly. For months, he had believed his body was failing. Men had watched him lose focus. Meetings had been canceled. Richard had offered to take responsibility from his hands. Hayes had called it stress. Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. "Someone needed you sick." Adrian looked at her. "No." His eyes moved to the 6 dates in her notebook, now copied onto a page beside the laboratory report. "Someone needed me to look sick." Adrian did not confront Dr. Hayes that afternoon. The old Adrian would have demanded answers before the laboratory report finished printing. But 6 months of unexplained weakness had taught him the value of waiting for facts. By noon, his attorney had arranged a confidential review of Hayes's financial records through lawful channels connected to an existing business audit. Adrian also ordered an independent physician to examine his medical history and every treatment note from the previous year. Maya knew none of the details. She returned to cleaning the West Wing because Adrian had told her to keep her routine normal, and normal was the only thing she trusted. 2 days later, The first answer arrived. Adrian sat in his study with his attorney, Evelyn, and the head of his security team when a payment summary was placed on the desk. The money had not moved directly from Richard Moretti to Leonard Hayes. It had traveled through a consulting company registered in Delaware, then through another account connected to a medical advisory service. The structure was complicated enough to look professional and simple enough to become suspicious once someone knew where to look. Adrian read the page twice. Richard. His cousin had spent months encouraging him to rest. Richard had volunteered to attend meetings. Richard had quietly told business partners that Adrian's health was becoming unpredictable. Each concern had sounded like loyalty. Now every kind word felt measured. "Bring Maya," Adrian said. Evelyn hesitated. "Sir, is that necessary?" Adrian looked at the 6 dates copied beside the laboratory report. She started this. She hears the answer. Maya entered 10 minutes later wearing her dark, cleaning uniform. She stopped when she saw the people in the room. "Did I do something wrong?" Adrian's expression tightened. "Why is that always your first question?" Maya blinked. Nobody answered. Adrian gestured toward the chair across from his desk. "Sit down." She sat carefully. Adrian turned the payment summary so she could see it. Richard Moretti has been paying a company connected to Dr. Hayes. Maya studied the paper without touching it. "Your cousin?" "Yes." "Why?" Adrian leaned back. "For the last 4 months, Richard has been telling several business partners that I am becoming medically unreliable." Maya's eyes moved toward the laboratory report. The answer formed slowly. "The meetings you canceled. He attended them. The days you could not concentrate. He remembered them for everyone." Maya became very still. Adrian continued. "There is a restructuring vote scheduled in 6 weeks. If enough people believe I cannot manage daily operations, Richard gains temporary authority over several divisions." The room fell silent. Maya looked at the dates in her notebook. March 4th, March 17th, April 2nd, April 18th, April 27th, May 3rd. They were no longer random mornings. They were demonstrations. Someone had been creating a story about Adrian's decline one breakfast at a time. "He did not need you dead," Maya said quietly. Adrian's attorney glanced at her. Adrian did not. "No." Maya looked at him. "He needed witnesses." That was the sentence that changed the room. Adrian turned toward the window. Every canceled meeting had produced witnesses. Every repeated question had produced witnesses. Every time Richard stepped forward to help, someone had watched Adrian step back. Hayes had not simply made him feel weak. He had made weakness visible. The study door opened. Dr. Hayes entered with Evelyn behind him. He had been asked to come for a routine consultation. Hayes saw the attorney first, then the laboratory report, then Maya. His expression barely changed. "Adrian," he said, "what is this?" Adrian remained seated. A conversation. Hayes looked at Maya. "With the cleaning woman?" Maya felt the familiar instinct to lower her eyes. She did not. Hayes gave a tired sigh. "This has gone far enough. She has no medical education. She has no understanding of pharmacology. You are allowing an employee to build fantasies around ordinary symptoms." Adrian folded his hands. The laboratory confirmed an undeclared prescription compound in the tonic. Hayes stopped. "There must be contamination." 6 episodes, Adrian said. 6 dates. Hayes looked at Maya again. "And you trust her records?" Adrian's voice remained calm. "More than your explanations." Hayes's face hardened. "She is a cleaning woman." Adrian looked at Maya, then back at the doctor. "Exactly." Hayes frowned. Adrian continued. "You spent months looking over her." Maya's voice came softly from across the desk. "Overlooking me." Adrian turned toward her. For one brief second, the coldness left his face. A small smile appeared. Then he looked back at Hayes. The room went silent, and Dr. Leonard Hayes finally understood the mistake that had exposed everything. He had carefully watched the powerful people in Adrian Moretti's house. He had never once considered the woman emptying the trash. Dr. Hayes did not confess in Adrian's study, and Adrian did not ask him to. The attorney ended the conversation before accusations could become arguments, and the independent medical report, laboratory findings, payment records, and Maya's dated observations were transferred to the appropriate legal and professional authorities. Hayes left the estate under instructions not to contact Adrian or any member of the household while the matter was reviewed. Richard Moretti received a different message from Adrian's attorneys before sunset. He was removed from every meeting connected to the upcoming restructuring vote and informed that his financial relationships were being examined. For the first time in months, Adrian did nothing dramatic. He let records speak. 3 weeks passed. Independent physicians reviewed his treatment history and confirmed that the unexplained episodes had stopped after the amber tonic disappeared from his routine. His concentration returned first, then his appetite. By the second week, he was walking the 2-mile private road behind the estate before sunrise again. The people around him noticed. Adrian noticed them noticing. At a business meeting in Manhattan, one partner asked whether he needed a break after 90 minutes. Adrian closed the report in front of him. "Do you?" The man looked embarrassed. Adrian almost smiled. Richard's story had spread farther than Adrian realized, but stories built from carefully arranged moments could be corrected by ordinary days. Meetings completed. Questions answered once. Lunch eaten. Decisions made without someone volunteering to replace him. Maya watched the recovery from the edges of the estate. She still arrived before 8, tied back her natural curls, and changed into the same dark cleaning uniform. The only difference was that people had begun looking at her. Kitchen staff asked how she had noticed. Security officers greeted her by name. Evelyn thanked her twice in 1 week. Maya disliked the attention. One afternoon, she entered the supply room and found a small bouquet of white roses on the shelf above her cleaning cart. There was no card. She carried the flowers to Evelyn's office. "Who sent these?" Evelyn looked up from her paperwork. "I was told not to say." Maya stared at her. "Mr. Moretti." Evelyn returned to her paperwork. "I did not say that." Maya left the roses in the staff room where everyone could see them. The next morning, Adrian found her polishing the library table. "You moved the flowers." Maya continued wiping the wood. "They were too nice for a supply room." "They were yours." "That was the problem." Adrian stopped. Maya looked at him. "People are already treating me differently. You saved my health. I noticed a bottle. You stopped me from drinking it." Maya folded the cloth in her hands. "Because I was scared." Adrian's expression became thoughtful. Most people would call that courage. Most people like simple stories. The answer surprised him. Maya continued. "I was afraid I would lose my job. I was afraid Dr. Hayes was right, and I had invented the whole thing. I was afraid you would think I was watching you." Adrian glanced toward the polished table. "You were watching me." Maya sighed. "You know what I mean." A quiet amusement moved across his face. Then it disappeared. "Richard wanted people to see me as weak." Maya nodded. "And now everyone wants to see me as brave." Adrian understood before she finished. "You do not want either of us reduced to one story." Maya's eyes softened. "Exactly." The library became quiet. Adrian had spent his life believing respect was something power forced from a room. Maya had earned it without asking anyone to stand. Later that week, the attorney confirmed that the evidence against Hayes and Richard was being reviewed through formal channels. Hayes faced a professional investigation concerning his treatment practices. Richard's financial access to Moretti operations was suspended pending the outcome of the review. Adrian did not celebrate. He sat alone in his study that evening and looked at the empty shelf where Evelyn once kept the amber tonic before breakfast. Maya entered to empty the wastebasket. She noticed him staring. "It is strange," Adrian said. "What is?" "For months, I thought I was dying." Maya stopped beside her cart. Adrian looked toward the empty shelf. "Then I thought someone wanted me dead." Maya waited. But the truth was smaller than that. His voice lowered. "They only needed me uncertain." Maya looked at him steadily. Uncertainty can make a person give away things nobody could take by force. Adrian turned toward her. He knew she was no longer talking only about him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Adrian nodded toward the empty shelf. "I think I hate that space." Maya considered it. "Then put something else there." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "That is your professional cleaning advice." Maya smiled. "No, sir. That costs extra." Adrian laughed, a quiet sound Maya had never heard from him before. The shelf remained empty that night. But for the first time, Adrian looked at the space and did not see the bottle. 6 weeks after, the amber tonic disappeared from Adrian Moretti's breakfast table. Maya Brooks entered his study carrying a small ceramic vase filled with yellow flowers. She had bought them from a corner market near her apartment for $7, choosing the brightest ones because the gray New York morning seemed determined to make everything else look tired. Adrian was standing near the window with a report in his hand. He turned when Maya crossed the room. What is that? Maya looked at the vase. You said you hated the empty shelf. Adrian glanced toward the narrow shelf beside his desk. I remember. You also ignored my professional advice. I was waiting for the invoice. Maya smiled and placed the vase exactly where the amber bottles had once been kept before breakfast. Yellow petals caught the morning light. For several seconds, Adrian said nothing. The shelf looked smaller now. Ordinary. Almost harmless. Maya stepped back. Better. Adrian studied the flowers. Annoyingly. Maya reached for her cleaning cloth. Then my work here is done. Actually, Miss Brooks, sit down. She stopped. Did I do something wrong? Adrian gave her a look. Maya sighed. I know. I am trying to stop asking that. She sat across from his desk. Adrian placed the report aside. Evelyn is retiring at the end of summer. Maya blinked. She did not tell me. She has told almost nobody. Then I definitely did not hear it from you. Adrian ignored that. The household needs an operations coordinator. Scheduling, staff routines, vendor records, inventory, and internal reporting. Maya stared at him. You are offering me Evelyn's job? No. Evelyn manages the entire estate. I am offering you a new position that reports to her while she prepares her replacement. Maya folded her hands. Because I found the bottle. No. Because I stopped you from drinking it. No. Maya waited. Adrian leaned forward slightly. Everyone in this house was paid to pay attention. Security watched doors. My physician watched my health. My managers watched schedules. My business partners watched numbers. His eyes settled on hers. You were the only person who noticed the pattern connecting all of them. Maya, look toward the yellow flowers. I cleaned around people long enough to learn their routines. Exactly. That does not make me qualified to manage operations. Evelyn disagrees. Maya turned back quickly. Adrian almost smiled. You spoke to her? I occasionally speak to people who work in my house. That must be exhausting for you. This time, Adrian did smile. The expression still looked unusual on him, but no longer impossible. Maya looked down at her hands. The offer frightened her in a different way than the amber bottle had. Cleaning was familiar. Invisible work had rules. Enter quietly. Finish completely. Leave the room better than you found it. An operations position meant questions, decisions, and people waiting for her answers. I need time, she said. Adrian nodded. Take it. Maya looked up, surprised. That is all. Were you expecting a dramatic speech? A little. Adrian leaned back. I am recovering. Maya laughed softly. 3 days later, she accepted the position. Not because Adrian Moretti had offered it, and not because the household suddenly treated her like a hero. She accepted after sitting with Evelyn for 2 hours and learning exactly what the work required. She asked about salary, training, hours, and responsibility. She read every page before signing. Adrian heard about that and said nothing. But later, alone in his study, he looked at the yellow flowers and smiled. The formal investigations continued. Hayes faced professional review and legal scrutiny connected to the undisclosed compound and his financial relationships. Richard remained removed from Moretti operations while attorneys and financial investigators examined the records. Adrian did not rush the outcome. He had spent months being manipulated by a story built faster than the truth. Now he was willing to let truth move carefully. By early summer, his health had stabilized under independent medical supervision. He walked 2 miles every morning again. He finished breakfast. He attended meetings without wondering whether someone was counting the seconds between his answers. And every weekday at 8:15, Maya entered the operations office with a notebook. It was not the same notebook she had used to record Adrian's episodes. That one remained locked in a drawer. The new notebook contained delivery schedules, maintenance dates, staff requests, and small details other people still forgot. One morning, Adrian passed her office and saw Maya explaining a scheduling problem to 2 employees. Her voice was calm. Neither person interrupted her. Adrian continued walking without entering. Maya noticed him through the open doorway. She smiled, then returned to her work. In his study, sunlight fell across the yellow flowers on the shelf. The vase had replaced the bottle, but Adrian finally understood that Maya had never simply uncovered a secret. She had revealed the cost of overlooking people. And that morning, the shelf that once held the lie finally held something alive.